One thing pretty much every game has is collectibles. They're just such a big part of games. But recently, since I've been getting into game design, I've been wondering about why that is. I've also been doing Pikmin 4 since that game's finally out now. And that game is pretty much all about collecting. Like, you're collecting treasures, castaways, enemy corpses, and other stuff. The game's overall goal is to collect stuff, which is probably one of the many reasons why Pikmin 2 is my favorite game. There's just something strangely rewarding about collecting things. But something that I was curious about was the exact reason why that is, and how to replicate that when making a game, and how to make something as rewarding as possible. So let's start with the whole reason why you even feel good in the first place. And that's because of dopamine, which is a chemical that's released in the brain to favor good things. Or at least it's supposed to. Of course, it's useful for things like making you want to eat or do something productive, but it's also why leveling up, moving on to another level, or collecting something is fun. It's kind of like your brain telling you what you did was good, so keep doing it. Even though playing games, I guess, is not exactly productive. But let's ignore that fact, since as a developer, I want to figure out the best way to constantly be giving players that rewarding dopamine feeling as much as possible. Now, everyone's different. Different people are going to find different things rewarding. Some people love the reward of figuring out a tough puzzle. I personally hate puzzles. The annoyance I feel from trying to figure them out is just not worth the reward of getting it done. Meanwhile, other people dislike having to manage large amounts of units and towers. While I personally love those large and strategic games where there's a lot you have to keep track of. It's going to be different for different people, though there are some more consistent things than others. For example, when just like numbers or levels or bars go up, that's something that pretty much everyone finds rewarding. There's a reason so many games just have like coins or something that even if they don't really do much, they're everywhere. And one type of game that has definitely figured this out are mobile games. Now, I personally really hate mobile games, since most of them, with just some exceptions, are cheaply made, with the only point being to get as much money from the player as possible. So I don't think it's exactly a good idea to be taking design strategies from them. Though some things they do when it comes to rewarding the player, I do think are useful to know. Since their number one goal is to make money, they need to try to get players as addicted as possible. So that means constantly rewarding them, and to do this, they usually try to keep things moving quickly with a lot of different things going on. And of course, pop-ups and numbers going up, really anything to keep the player engaged. Like, take clicker games, for example. The literal only point of them is to make the numbers go up, then buy stuff to keep making that number go up faster. Now, I like Cookie Clicker, but you can see how these tactics work. It all comes back to dopamine and rewarding the player. Another thing mobile games do sometimes that I think everyone dislikes are things that only have a chance of giving you what you want, or loot boxes. Now, loot boxes are pretty much just gambling. They'll have things you want and things you don't. Though, the problem with loot boxes and things like it are that the way you get them are usually from using real money to buy them. Or at least they're very hard to obtain from the game. A lot of times I've seen with mobile games, they basically work by having the game be easy in the start, rewarding and stuff. You're going through levels, then it starts to get harder, or the movement of the game slows down, kind of. You're not making as much progression as fast. So then, of course, you might resort to buying one of the loot boxes or something like it. And then you don't get what you want, so maybe you buy another one, and that keeps happening. And if you do get what you want, it's not too long before the game's getting harder again, and you're forced to buy one again. You can probably see why I don't like mobile games, or really any game with microtransactions. Since they need to make money from players buying things in-game, they can't focus as much on the overall game. Like with a one-time purchase, you've bought the game. The game doesn't have to do anything more to get you to buy something. All it has to do is be a good experience to make you buy maybe another game in the future. But with mobile games, it's just all about trying to get you to spend just a bit more money. So while I think adding something like loot boxes into a game is a very bad idea, I do think the idea of trying to keep the player as interested as possible by constantly offering rewards is a good thing to keep in mind. I also just thought of another game that I used to not understand. I remember I tried it, but I just couldn't get into it, and I stopped playing it. And it wasn't until years later that I tried it again. And that game is Animal Crossing. Animal Crossing is a very different game. You're not fighting, you're not moving on to different levels. It happens in real time. You go in each day and different things happen. But the things that happen really shouldn't be that interesting. Like if you just tell someone about the game, it doesn't sound interesting. I mean, the things you do each day are like hitting rocks, shaking trees, catching bugs or fish. It should be the most boring game in the world, yet it's also one of my favorites. And based off of how well New Horizons has done on the Switch, I know a lot of other people like it. The thing I've always wondered about with that game though is, why is it actually fun? I mean, I got all the fish and bugs and fossils and paintings, and I would have tried to collect every collectible too if it didn't mean going to other players' islands, or the whole villager hunting thing. Basically, as you do things, you'll just gradually get more Nook miles, and when you get enough of them, you can buy these tickets, which, assuming you have a spot open on your island, you can use to then go to these mystery islands, where there will be a villager. From there, you can talk to the villager, and they'll come back the next day. Or you can just leave and use another ticket to go to another mystery island. And there are many people who will just spend hours going to different mystery islands to try to get the villager they want. It's long and tedious and kind of boring, but it's also really rewarding once you finally get that villager. But there's also another part to it, and to Animal Crossing overall, that is the main reason why I think it's such a fun game to play. And I think it comes from the randomness of it. I think randomness is one of the best ways to cause dopamine in players. It's the reason why going to your island every day to see if there's something new that's happened is fun. And Animal Crossing has a lot of random things to it. I mean, every time you go into Nook's shop, the Able Sisters, or just walking around looking for a floating balloon or a new bug, that's basically like opening a mini loot box. You're spinning the wheel to see where it lands, what new items will be in today, or what new bugs are walking around. And I think that's why Animal Crossing is so fun and replayable. This also comes back to why I think Pikmin 2 is my favorite game. And it's because of the fact that caves in that game are slightly randomized. It's not completely randomized, but it's random enough to make it interesting. Like sure, treasures will be in the same floor every time, but they'll be in different spots. And walls and enemies will be different. It's a unique experience every time you do it. Not super unique, but interesting enough. Or look at casinos or arcades. A lot of those things rely on randomness, or at least they pretend to. I mean, they're usually pretty rigged, but the fact that there's a chance you might win is why they're so addicting. Same with lottery tickets. It's easy to buy one, see how close you got to winning, and buy another one, and before you know it, you spend tens of thousands of dollars. Randomness is a very dangerous thing to work with, but if done right, it can make a very good gaming experience. I think just trying to add randomness wherever you can is a good idea. At least, I know that's what I'm going to try to do with my games. Maybe some things will be small, like just changing the exact location where an enemy spawns. While others might be a lot bigger, like having a whole area closed because it's raining, or making shops appear the longer you play or something. Just different stuff to make it interesting to keep playing. Also, the more random it is, the more replayable it is. I mean, that's kind of why Minecraft is so big. Pretty much everything about Minecraft is random. The way the terrain generates, the biomes, where enemies spawn, it's all just random. And because of that, you can keep playing it endlessly. You're never going to get to the end of the story because there is no story. Also, I realized that I started this video talking about collectibles, which was the main point of this video, and I kind of went off to the whole random thing instead. The thing is, there's still some things about making collectibles that I haven't even talked about. And unfortunately, it'd take a bit too long to go through them now, so I think I'll save them for another video. Also, I thought this paint in the background I was doing was pretty fitting for this video since he's collecting things. And I wasn't even trying to do that, it just worked out like that.